We are the Matea Group of Keller Williams Realty. We enjoy the diverse community that we serve and the lifestyle that Maine has to offer. We'll be talking all things real estate and Maine. Welcome to the Maine Real Estate Show.
Welcome, everyone, to the Maine Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Jeff Matea. Joining me, Harrison Smith. How you doing, Harrison?
Good. How we doing, Jeff?
Fantastic. I'll add to the Keller Williams Realty, the Matea Group, so we're in compliance with any advertising. We wouldn't want to upset any folks at the Maine Real Estate Commission.
So, got to make sure we disclose who we are.
But thanks for joining us at the Maine Real Estate Show here. And let's recap the State of the Market show. Yep. It was always a fan favorite. I think it was every month, every 6 weeks that we did it on when we were at WGIN. And really it was on repetitive, low inventory, inflation. It was broken record. But
and then we mixed interest rates in kind of late last year.
All the three I's, right?
Exactly. That's what it's been all about. And as we heard from Corey last week, interest rates are still going to be a potential problem going throughout the year. Not a problem in the sense that housing is unaffordable, but it's just not as cheap as it was. And I think we got used to a level of affordability that really wasn't natural. And now we're getting back to something that's more normal. But ultimately, we were talking the other day, even if interest rates were back to where they were, there's just still no inventory to sell. There's nothing for buyers to buy.
It's crazy, the demand. I just got off the phone with someone that saw a property today that wanted to make an offer, and they, coming from a different state, really didn't realize the inventory shortage in Maine. I mean, they knew that there wasn't a lot to look at. They thought it was more seasonality, but really the number of buyers that showed up to this property, like they were astounded. Like, holy crap, there's that many people that could be interested, even at this price point. Yeah, that's how it is, and I don't think that corrects itself. There's just really a shortage of inventory, and interest rates, I think if they drop, that's going to even drive more people into the market. Right. And I don't know if it's going to ever end, at least in the short term.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where we'd love to have so many houses that we could sell, and interest rates would obviously be a nice factor there, but ultimately it's still not a bad time to act.
Sure.
If you're a buyer in the marketplace that's ready to go, can act quickly, can make a decision, there's still houses out there that are available to you. You just got to move quickly, and it's still a good time to sell.
Yeah, and there's great opportunities for buyers, and there's excellent opportunities as sellers to take advantage of that. There's more buyers out there right now, and there's going to be even more. And feels like the prices are at an all-time high. We don't know if they'll continue to go up. Maybe they come down. Six of one, half a dozen the other. It's going to happen at some point when it will have already happened. Right.
That's the beauty of that news. You always find out when it's already over.
Right. So we talked about the three I's: inflation, interest rates, inventory, and now we have an in-studio guest. Thankfully, we do a lot with him in insurance. So the fourth I now in Jeff Lee at Farmers Insurance. So we'll go ahead and welcome Jeff to the studio here.
Hello there, Jeff. Hello, gentlemen.
What's going on?
How are we?
Awesome. So Jeff Lee of Farmers Insurance, tell us, what's the latest and greatest in the insurance world?
Well, while we're on the topic of inflation, that's what we're seeing as well. Claims cost more to pay out in the last 2 years than they ever had before. Companies are taking losses because of supply chain issues and inflation to whether it be parts for cars or materials for homes. Labor has been difficult as well, which is probably true across the board, especially in the building industry. But so we're seeing rate increases from a lot of carriers, all carriers, but to varying degrees. Farmers probably took a 3% rate increase this last year, though that's a drop in the bucket compared to what we're seeing from some of the other major carriers who are taking double-digit rate increases, 10, even 20% in some cases.
Wow.
A few of the big names have actually filed for them again in the first quarter of 2023.
Wow.
And that's inflation driven, but also payouts from many disasters over the past year.
That hasn't helped either. And so if we have an increased frequency of disasters and then an increased cost to replace things, it's kind of a perfect storm. The insurance industry is in an odd place right now because companies can't stay in business if they're taking losses like this, but they can't keep business either if they are driving rates up 20% twice a year.
Wow. Yeah. So do you see some of these carriers leaving the state of Maine or just other areas?
Maine, surprisingly, is pretty profitable actually, compared to other states. We have less major population centers. I would say by and large, we probably have less reconstruction costs for homes up here, versus somewhere like New York, California, Florida, higher value, bigger properties, I think on average over out in those places. So there are carriers pulling out of New England states, though. I did hear one major one is
Mm.
leaving Massachusetts altogether.
Wow.
Big name
Okay.
that you see in commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been some really interesting headlines of late where we've seen, we're hearing about policies being canceled in high risk areas. We're seeing insurers pull out of areas.
Yep.
Florida, people are getting reduced payouts or even denials on their hurricane claims. It's kind of a wild time in insurance. And one thing you've talked about in the past, I don't think even I realized, was that the pricing of insurance in Maine isn't just affected by what happens in Maine. It's affected by what happens all over the country, right?
Absolutely. It depends on the carrier. So a national carrier spreads its risk out, of course, over the entire country. So if you're with an Allstate, a Farmers, a State Farm, we do share that risk across the board. So if they are taking major losses in Florida, for example, rates are going to go up for everybody across the entire country. The flip side, though, is also not favorable either. Regional mutual insurers, say somebody who just covers New England, also takes major losses if there is a bad storm or a higher rate of inflation in this area. And because their book is captive to a very small region of a few states, they often have to take even bigger rate increases. Those are some of the larger rate increases we've seen actually recently is the mutual insurers.
Wow. And Farmers is a national carrier and obviously has risk around the country, but you're not seeing similar things from Farmers, right? Farmers is actually doing a lot of different things to try to help the homeowner.
That's true. We are the only carrier that I know of left that still offers something called guaranteed rebuild on one's home, which is a
Hmm.
perfect it combats inflation perfectly because farmers will pay out whatever is necessary to rebuild a home regardless of the limit on the policy. Unheard of these days. It
Hmm.
used to be the way home insurance was written typically. Carriers started getting away from it in the 80s and 90s. Farmers, again, as far as I know, is the only one that still offers it. So if your home cost, 4 years ago, 200,000 to rebuild, then we had the crazy inflation we've had for the last few years and it costs 300,000 to rebuild now. Farmers will go up to that 300,000 to rebuild the home as long as it has the guaranteed rebuild endorsement on the policy, which at my agency, of course, we add to everybody's policy
Yeah, that's
because
amazing.
Yeah.
a couple bucks, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what it's going to save in the event of a major loss.
Got it. So we know, the trend is that insurance premiums are climbing, rates. What are you seeing? You said you saw 3%. Is that nationwide, or is that strictly to Maine in your premiums, or is that a
That
farmer
was to Maine
nationwide?
premiums. And Maine is an interesting state for farmers also because farmers is fairly new to New England.
Hmm.
The company saw a lot of this coming, like what's happening now. So they positioned themselves well coming into this market, knowing what the rates should be. And so we haven't had to take major increases like
I see.
other regional insurers who have been here forever.
You spread your risk out across another state or two by coming to New England or further into New England. Farmers was already in New England, just spread a little bit further.
Correct.
Okay.
And they were able to just position themselves with like very low rates also coming into the state comparatively. Even before the increase that other companies took, we were 20-30% on average less than our competitors in Maine, at least.
Wow. So sounds like you're saving Mainers money by insuring them or insuring more of them that didn't necessarily have access to farmers insurance before. Are you seeing folks that are underinsured as you're quoting and,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's because of that inflation the last few years. I'd say a good half the people that we quote who have existing policies have a dwelling limit, which is what rebuilds your home,
Mhm.
lower than what it would take to rebuild that home today with the increased cost of labor and materials. Now, pretty much every carrier has endorsements that you can add to policies that extend your replacement costs. Nobody offers that guaranteed rebuild I was mentioning earlier, but there are companies that will say extend your replacement cost by a 20% cushion or 25% cushion. However, The average consumer has no idea if they have that on their policy. It's totally up to whether their agent was being diligent or not.
Hmm.
And when we look at these policies, about half of them are missing that endorsement. So, if anything, now is absolutely an imperative time to have your insurance reviewed if you
Well,
own a home.
so if I get a quote, or I guess if I look back at my insurance coverage, like how do I know? Is it something I just need to call you to share it with you, or would I be able to figure that out on my own?
It's I would not try to figure that out on your own. It's
Yeah.
different companies call these endorsements different things, so it's pretty unless you are a licensed and experienced insurance agent, you're not going to be able to dig through that policy and all of the various lines of endorsements and figure out, what exactly it has or does not have. I would recommend talking to either your current agent or a local agent who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and what I find interesting too is we have, clients, they're buying the house and know what they paid for the house. And then they get the insurance binder and the amount that they're insured for is not what they're paying for the home.
Mm.
And we've had some people that been very nervous that they weren't fully covered. And you've explained to me before, and I did not realize this either. Your insurance coverage is not necessarily for the value of your home, right?
Nope. It simply covers the reconstruction cost of your home because you can't damage the value of the land or the location. And we don't have to insure fluctuations in the real estate market. We just have to ensure that that house is going to be rebuilt exactly the same way it was before a loss. So that and the purchase price of a property are two different things. Related, but not exactly the same. And there's actually the flip side of that too, Harrison. I've had people say, I only paid X for this house. Why
Mm.
is it insured for, Z, which is a higher amount than what they paid for it. You don't find that often in Cumberland County these days. That's more, up in the north of the state where property
Mhm.
values are a little lower because of the location, but still costs the same amount to rebuild the home.
Sure.
Sure, absolutely.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, talking about having a local agent, and we are big proponents of working with local resources through real estate transactions, and even after the fact. Can you talk about the difference that local agency makes versus maybe a national carrier that's got no office or location here?
Oh, it's like night and day. Everything I was just mentioning about, whether the endorsement is on a policy to make sure that it's got extended coverage, the ability to have your policy reviewed properly.
Mm.
You're not going to find that with a 1-800 number.
Hmm.
That model was built on a transactional sort of philosophy of 15 minutes is going to save you 15% or less, like quick,
Yeah.
again, transactional. It's like going through the drive-through. Just
Yeah.
get me,
Yep.
get
Volume.
me something that's going to satisfy the legal requirement to drive and like register my car and get me out of here.
Yep.
Um, that's a huge disservice to customers when they actually have a claim. There's really two different ways of looking at insurance. It's either fulfilling a requirement of either, the state in order to, drive your car, or a mortgagee if you have a loan on your home, or it's actually protecting your assets. And working with a local agent is really the only way to make sure you're buying insurance that does the latter.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's intriguing. So say I, I'm not sure. I know who I'm insured by. I just can't find my policy, or I've lost. Yeah, I don't know when it's going to come up for renewal. I don't know how to find that. I mean, what would be the step to take to have you look at it for me, to see if you can save me money or get me better coverage for less or the same amount?
Well, as long as you know which carrier you're with, at least my staff, myself, anybody at my agency is more than happy to call that carrier and get that declaration page that shows your current coverage. We need the client on the phone for 2 minutes just to give their authorization for it, but we're happy to help track that information down in order to
So,
help people.
so seriously, it's 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Just a simple phone call,
Yep.
authorization.
We'll
You
wait.
take it
We'll
from
wait
there.
on hold for you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then conference you in.
Okay.
Well, it's also great to because oftentimes you don't know exactly what we're asking for. The fact that you're on the phone with them, making the request, takes a lot of the fear and friction out of that process because you can tell me what to ask for. It doesn't mean I actually know what I'm asking for.
Oh, yeah, I've made that mistake early in my career.
Yeah. Right.
Because insurance is tough. It's also, there's a whole language to it, just like
Yeah.
you guys have in your industry. If you leave it up to the consumer to call in, like they also might get the runaround. I've had that happen before too, where Somebody needed to get a document. I let them know what they needed. They called into a 1-800 number and got bounced around for an hour to different departments.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We're pretty well versed in how to cut through that sort of stuff these days. And we do that for our client and then just pop them in for the 2 minutes that we need to get the authorization.
Yeah. So we're fortunate. We've been in our field for quite a while, as well as you. So we met a long time ago and knew that you'd encourage us. It's like every 2 to 3 years, you should always just revisit your coverage. Is that advice you'd still give, or is it every 12 months, depending on where you live and what
These
type of home?
days, Jeff, I'd say 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
Just it's the financial, economic, state of everything right now with the inflation we were just talking about. Everything is so up in the air and very tenuous at the moment. I would recommend having your insurance looked at, at least every 2 years, if not every year. And a good agent should be doing that for you also. At my agency, we review our client as they come up for renewal. We do conduct a policy review. We'll reach out, make sure that everything is still covered properly. We'll see if there's any discounts that we can add. We like to check in with our folks, every year to year and a half.
Okay. And you don't just do like homeowners and auto. You do have other lines of insurance you offer as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. We do home, auto, any sort of toys, boats, motorcycles, ATVs, huge in Maine. We handle life insurance as well. We do write a lot of new homeowners, so we can add mortgage protection to their policies. It's a term life policy that wherein the bank is not the beneficiary, a spouse is the beneficiary, which allows a family to stay in a home and pay off the mortgage should, a worst case scenario happen to one of them.
Oh, that's nice.
Now, what if someone just bought a home? Because I've dealt with this before too. I was at the closing table and saw someone the number that your house just sold for and what you're paying for an insurance premium just doesn't seem to line up. I obviously let the sale close to not disrupt it at the closing. But how soon after could someone revisit and just say, "Geez, I just got that because I used
Mhm.
XYZ company. My car was already insured there, or my lender said, just let's get it to closing. Let's just get a binder." What would you suggest and how soon can you revisit? Because my understanding is that insurance is prorated. I can shop at any time.
Correct. So in that theoretical scenario, that buyer could have left the closing table, called my agency, and had a new, cheaper policy within the hour. They wouldn't have even owed any money on the previous one because it would have gotten canceled the same day it went into it. So process is actually far easier than the average consumer thinks.
Yeah.
And we handle the vast majority of it for new clients. We will cancel their previous insurance for them, make sure they're getting their refund. We deal with any proof of insurance because, again, go back to that same scenario. The mortgagee is still going to need a proof of insurance if the other one cancels the day of closing. So we would have to get a new what's called a binder over to the lender. We handle all of that, and it's actually very streamlined and very easy for us. What sounds like a ponderous process from the consumer's perspective, it's actually quite easy for us, and we do it every day.
Well, Harrison, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. We're paying so much more for everything.
I know.
Why wouldn't you take 2 to 5 minutes to visit with your insurance agent, whether it's Jeff or who you have, just to see how you're insured, make sure you're insured to where you need to be first and foremost. I mean, that's important. Don't cut coverage. I'm sure
Right.
Jeff would agree. Wouldn't cut coverage to try to save money. Get the same coverage, if not better. Make sure you're covered. And then if the premium's less, then you can go for the lower premium.
Exactly.
Of course, yeah, then I'm sure Jeff could elaborate on this. Then there's the service if you ever had a claim and questions. Can you talk further about that? I mean, there's differences there. If you happen to be more expensive than someone, maybe there's more of a service offering in the insurance world.
Absolutely. And again, going back to what we were talking about previously, it's like night and day having a local agent. I'll tell you, during this last freeze we had, claims stacked up.
Hmm.
Some of them were difficult. We've got some older properties in Maine. Adjusters had a lot of
Right.
questions. They had to fly adjusters in from other parts of the country. We had so many
wow.
claims.
Jeez.
And that's true of every carrier. Every
Yeah,
carrier across the
that
board
makes
was
sense.
bringing in teams from all over the country. I dealt with a
Wild.
claims adjuster from Mississippi a few weeks ago during that freeze. having a local agent to be your representative to cut through the red tape and get things done when you've got a bad claim is it's hard to even quantify the amount of money. I think most folks, they save, 10 or 15 bucks, like going to a 1-800 number kind of carrier. It seems great. And then if they have a bad claim and they're getting their payout delayed, or it's 5 figures less than they expect it to be, that 10 or 15 bucks they saved, versus a local agent is nothing. Like most folks in that scenario would rather go back in time and pay a little bit more to have somebody who's on their side during a claim, especially a rough one.
Yeah, and
That makes sense.
yeah, it's amazing to think. And that I can actually speak from my own experience to what Jeff was mentioning in terms of going through the process because I actually, I had insurance for years with a local agency, and I brought it to you, Jeff, just to price shop it because I saw the rates other people were getting, and some of my friends who I had sent your way are getting unbelievable rates. So I brought my insurance to you. It literally took, I don't know, 5 minutes or less. I had a quote back the next day, and I had I was underinsured. So even correcting that issue, I still saved about 10 or 15% of my insurance, even bridging the gap to being underinsured. Because honestly, the other agent that I was with, I hadn't talked to them in probably 3 years about my insurance, and we all know what that period had looked like. So it literally
Right.
5 minutes saved me from a potential catastrophic claim down the road because I didn't have the guaranteed rebuild like Farmers offers.
Yep.
And also saved a little bit of money in the process, and it was so easy.
Great, great. Well, we appreciate your time, Jeff. Is there anything else that you want to add about the insurance industry or what lies ahead in 2023?
I think it's pretty up in the air. I mean, as the country's economy goes, so goes the rest of us. We'll see what happens. But I mean, I think we covered it pretty well. If anything, my biggest advice to insurance consumers is talk to a local agent. If you ever need your insurance, you will be very happy that you did.
And if people were to get in contact with you, they just needed 2 minutes. How do they contact you?
207 810 2190.
Well, thanks so much, Jeff Lee of Farmers Insurance, for joining us on the Maine Real Estate Show.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Always good stuff to talk to Jeff.
It always is. Yeah. So the insurance industry, fairly volatile right now. It's like we said, we've said this a few times, just getting a second opinion. It
It's
doesn't
so
hurt.
good.
It takes 2 to 5 minutes. Just need to give your authorization to your agent. Again, local agent, hopefully, and visit that regularly, year to 2 years, just to make sure that you're at least insured to where you need to be. And then if you're looking to save some money, shop it around
Exactly.
with the same insurance coverage.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's so hard to figure out if you're getting an apples to apples comparison because every insurance program is different. They all have different endorsements, as Jeff mentioned. Some things they do, some things they don't. And what I love about Jeff and his team is that if you do have a question, maybe as ridiculous as you think that question might be, they've gotten it before. They're happy to answer it. And we recommend everybody, especially on a real estate transaction, to get a second opinion. Get a second opinion on your mortgage options. Get a second opinion on your insurance options. Get a second opinion on inspectors. Like you should be looking at who's out there to help because there's a lot of great resources for you. And I know many times we come in and we're very loyal to somebody. We've been with them a long time, but I tend to be loyal to to my family and what my family needs.
Well, first, yeah, first
Exactly.
and
And if
foremost.
there's something that works better, you owe it to yourself to at least explore it.
Yeah, yeah. And the market's ever changing too, so you want to watch that. Inflation has caused us to look a little bit deeper into our,
Sure.
expenses and where we can trim things if need be. Doesn't mean that you have to be drastic about it, but 5-10% here and there over time. Look at it each month, see what you can do to make adjustments. 'Cause, you want to still be around and have money to enjoy yourself with.
Exactly. Yeah. I want to know that I'm covered. So when I put my head on the pillow at night, I'm not worried about how things are going to happen. And if I can save some money too, that's a really nice bonus. But there's a lot of great resources out there. Jeff and his team are terrific at answering questions, and no obligation, no cost. Call them, have
Yep,
them review your insurance,
that's right.
and if you've got a great program, they're going to tell you that, hey, what you've got is great. Leave it alone.
Right, right, right. Well, we see, the real estate market continuing to, go along. We're seeing the spring market starting to heat up where more listing inventory is coming, yet we see buyers are out there and they're coming out in droves. So expecting that multiple offer scenario. So, maybe even having insurance premium a little lighter in some areas, you might be able to afford more. Not that it's going to make a huge difference, but it make you feel a lot better, and qualify for more. So a number of lenders I know I've talked to said, farmers has been very competitive and has helped my clients feel a lot more comfortable making an offer or making an even stronger offer where they can.
Exactly. Every little bit helps. If you can save a couple $100 a year, that allows your mortgage dollars to go a little bit further. And that's one of the things that I like is that, you've got to think about your budget. We used to buy homes thinking about the payment only.
Yeah.
Now we're buying homes thinking about our overall budget and what that effect is. So every little bit that you can save, certainly goes towards making that home purchase, more affordable, and allowing you to have that better quality of life.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's always good information. I'm looking forward to our next show. And next time Jeff joins us, see what we've got for an update.
Exactly.
As always, if you have questions at any time, you can go to jeffsellsmaine.com and you can reach us out to us directly at 207-553-2605 or jeffsellsmaine.com. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you very soon.